On today's Minute of the Apes, are you the female of the species? Well, I am every woman. It's all in me.
Hello and welcome to Minute of the Apes, a daily podcast where we break down every minute of the Planet of the Apes movies, 1 minute at a time. And Richard sings the hits of the 70s, 80s, and you'll do 90s too, right?
I'll do whatever Weezer does.
There you
That's
go.
that whole new
What's
album.
your next song? Come on, right now.
Africa? Oh, I have to sing it now?
Yeah.
Never gonna let you go.
Wow, I never knew we were going to go down this rabbit hole. All right, so here we are on Friday. We're at minute 25. We are still in expository Senate moments, which actually even sounds dirtier than the double Dixon bookend.
What about the expository double Dixon bookend?
Sean, tell us what's going on with minute 25.
All right, we're going to start minute 25 with Dixon saying that the chimpanzees are ready to answer questions, and ends with Dixon saying that's for you to decide.
Can we agree not to say that Dixon does anything anymore? Because I don't think that the three of us together cannot make jokes about Dixon doing something from this point going forward. Here's minute 25, Escape from the Planet of the Apes.
Our chimpanzee friends are ready to answer your questions, too. Not by signs, not by looks or movements, but by words.
Dr. Dixon, as a zoologist, I know and respect your work, but if you think you're going to turn a presidential inquiry into a ventriloquist act, I have to inform you.
And I have to inform you, sir, that these two apes have acquired the power of speech.
Come now, Doctor, you know as well as I do, their brain system is not developed in either the vocal or abstract thinking area.
Yes, sir, but I repeat that they have the power of speech, and it is for you, gentlemen, to assess how far that power can be exercised intelligently.
Well, may we be told which is the female of the species? Did she rise as a reflex to your having indicated her or in answer to my question?
Well, that's for you to decide.
All right, as of minute 25, we have a planet's worth of humans plus 2 living apes and 1 dead ape. Okay, well, this whole show devolved really quickly. Once Dixon said they could speak, everybody in the gallery lost it.
I found that an odd choice, that the way that it's revealed that they can speak is him telling people they can
Instead
speak.
of them speaking.
Especially because in coming moments that we won't talk about right now, that occurs. I mean, wouldn't it have been a better choice just to let them blurt it out?
I mean, you would have think that the audience would have lost their minds originally when 2 human-sized chimpanzees walked out.
We've already established the fact that the military personnel, even Dr. Dixon and Dr. Branton, didn't necessarily respond to the fact that they have human-sized chimpanzees, like not tiny little, tiny little chimp, tiny little chimpan, tiny little chimp feet.
Pino chimpy.
Right, exactly.
It was the little chimp feet.
About the fact that we have these full-size, human-sized, normal walking
Clothes,
chimps doesn't trigger
manicured.
anybody at this moment that something is unusual.
So,
You're following a conceit that the world is somehow looking past what is obvious to us, that they're dressed, that they're combed, that their nails are done, all these things, that they walk by and large erect instead of
hunched over,
hunched,
using their knuckles and everything.
But it's something that we notice all these unusual things all day long that we would point out. This would have been pointed out.
Yeah.
But they're prepared for something. I mean, the press has already warned them that something is unusual about this situation. So maybe they're not going to respond visually to what they see at the moment. Like if they had walked out like that, it would have been interesting to hear the audience go, oh,
yeah.
Like it would have, a gasp might have been interesting.
But what's kind of interesting, so this
One person in the back just goes, fake news.
So if this is an echo of the first film, we know Taylor can speak, but they don't.
Right.
The surprise comes when get your damn singing paws off me, you damn dirty ape, or whatever it is. They explain the surprise before the surprise occurs. So
what is Dane building here by this?
Dane is so good with themes and things like that, and actually getting it at that, because I don't think you can argue that he does not do a great job of, if here's a theme, I'm going to build it and it pays off. Even with Beneath, which was a jumbled mess of themes, he was introducing things and he at least put them in there so there were themes. Mm-hmm. Here, this theme of strangers in a strange land with something to reveal They have nothing to reveal because we as people already know it, and our surprise comes in the moment that everybody else knows it. And it's odd to say, hey, by the way, they can do this before they do this.
So if we think about the fact that Lewis is coming out here on some level as a P.T. Barnum, not by signs, not by looks or by movements, but by words. Like there's a moment in this dialogue that makes it sound like he's a showman.
The greatest showman on earth.
Like he's trying to
Never
show
thought
something
about
off here.
A carnival barker.
What may astonish you is that our chimpanzee friends are ready to answer your questions too, not by signs, not by looks or movements, but by words. Like there was just this kind of build up to like that moment. I mean, again, I'm watching it and hearing the actors deliver it and then kind of reading it. You feel a different sense that there may have been moments that Dane wanted to be a little more comedic than they were.
Well, I actually think
came across.
I actually think that Sean and I constantly ping each other about podcast ideas going forward. Once we finally finish with all the Planet of the Apes movies, I know a new one.
Well,
Richard reads every script in P.T. Barnum voice. You could actually take that to every level. Rosebud. I like it.
So we go to the next line and the chairman says, Dr. Dixon, as a zoologist, I know and respect your work. But if you think you're going to turn the Presidential Commission into a inquiry into a ventriloquist act, I have to inform you. So he says ventriloquist act.
Yeah.
So again, Dane is trying to inject some type of comedy in here.
It is.
He's trying to put some, it reads as doubt. Don't make fun of this commission.
Right.
But he's specifically referencing ventriloquist act. I think Dane was trying to be playful with the scene, a lot more playful than it actually came across until we get Kim Hunter, who makes it playful.
So Dixon must be a really famous zoologist to be afforded the respect that he's being afforded it.
That's a good point.
He respects his work. Like I'm like, I can't name a zoologist.
Yeah, can you name a zoologist?
Gorillas in the Mist. What's her name?
Jane Goodall. I'm assuming she's a primatologist, not a zoologist. Steve Irwin, maybe? I don't know. I mean, outside of that, can you name anybody else?
It's a zoologist.
Yeah.
We keep putting all the comedic elements on Dane for writing it, but I also think that Don Taylor probably is making a very conscious decision as the director to say we have a light tone because
his light tone.
He has not changed that tone even in the moments of the newsreels that played before the family. There's still a comedic element to that. Again, when we think about the delivery from the English version, we don't know what was being said by the different languages, French and Japanese or Chinese, whatever it may be. German as well. The comedic tone has never stopped. I'm kind of curious, and I think I'm going to have to go do some homework on, because I've compared this to Star Trek The Voyage Home before, how Star Trek Voyage Home has a comedic tone that you don't necessarily see throughout Star Trek until that one comes. I'm kind of curious. There are moments where the comedic tone stops and a more serious threat comes from somewhere. Then we go back to the comedic tone. We know it's lighthearted, but that decision to stay rather comedic, I think, has to be the director saying, keep it there. Keep it there. I want to keep this lighthearted. We were so dark in the previous one where everybody was out to kill everybody and we blew up the whole world. We have to stay in the good graces of our audience and stay lighthearted.
So let's go to a fantasy place just real quick with the dialogue, because it actually happened in scene and it actually is in the script. He says, if you think you're going to turn the presidential inquiry into ventriloquist act, I have to inform you, .. And Lewis suddenly interjects and says, and I have to inform you that these apes have acquired the power of speech. So all of a sudden, Lewis is kind of getting his gumption, is getting his
He grew up here.
He grew up here to kind of jump in and interrupt the chairman. Where do you think the chairman was going to go?
Say what he said again.
But if you think you're going to turn the presidential inquiry into a ventriloquist act, I have to inform you
that I'm going to shut this shit down.
That I'm going to shut it down. That I'm going to. That this is. I mean,
we will end this inquiry at this very moment. You know, and
we'll end it before it begins.
I would have liked to have seen a little more of that. That brings to mind something that I want to say about Hassline. Hassline starts a very weird body language that will continue through the whole film. Not only that, so Richard's looking at me and he puts his hands across his lips.
He's got it.
He's also leaned back into his chair, which is not a professional reproach to a conversation such as this. He's very removed, as though there's one thing, if you're ever looking, I didn't know this until someone pointed out to me, that the act of putting your hands together when you speak is called steepling.
Yeah.
And it's one of the most condescending things you can do, because what you're saying is, I have brought together the information and I understand something you don't. They say it's like one of the worst things. And the reason I read about it was Steve Jobs did that at times and they had to fight with him to stop it because you come off as condescending. Hasline's activities in this are dismissive to, but I actually think it works because he is above this. He's thinking where the other men are forward and they're challenging this. He's taking in the moment.
Okay.
He knows.
He's already made up his mind.
Well, that's what Richard asked before. Did he know that? I think that's exactly what it is. He's thinking, oh my God, all my theories have played true.
Well, he's got the one arm, he's got his two arms crossed. He's leaning back. He then takes one arm and kind of puts it over his mouth and his face. In the meantime, while he's watching Dr. Lewis, he's watching him. He doesn't have a serious face on. He actually has a little bit of kind of a little bit of a smirk almost. Like he sees where this is going. But it's going to be the next minute that we can't talk about what his body language does at that point, because then we get into the actual moment.
I'm going to call my wife in. Come here. Do you have that image up on here?
Of which one?
Can you see Hasline right now?
Yeah.
Point out Hasline. Who is that, Shelley?
That is Victor.
Thank you. She knew that. Young and the Restless. I knew that would happen. I just had to prove my point about that that's who he is.
So I just did a quick Google search on famous zoologists.
Okay.
All right. So Steve Irwin.
Yep.
We were right on that. Jane Goodall. Diane Fossey.
Is she married to Bob Fosse?
Hey.
No, I'm sorry. I couldn't resist.
Charles Darwin and Jack Hanna. Outside of that, I don't know anybody else on this list.
Well, they need to have Dr. Lewis Dixon in there, too.
Yeah.
But Stevie would not be on that list. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
She was an associate.
So, yeah, I mean, famous zoologists. They had to make up that term.
Well, back to Hasline. I wanted to point that out because I actually thought amongst the acting we've seen, we give a lot of accolades to Kim and to Roddy. I thought that Eric Braden's choice at this point, and whatever that is, to constantly remove himself from, and he's somehow better. Now, there are moments later on that I want to point out where it gets kind of weird. Okay. It's kind of, what are you doing? But in this moment, I thought it is so pitch perfect that he's above what they're doing. He already knows the answer. He already knows where this is going.
I will compliment you for pointing that out about him, because when I think about the other actors in terms of what they're doing, I don't see a lot of subtlety in Dr. Dixon or Dr. Branton in terms of who they are. I mean, I see Dr. Dixon kind of stumbling from here and there, trying to be a little bit more comedic. But yeah, no, the subtlety of what he's doing in the background is so much more powerful than what any actor has done, other than our two leads.
Right.
So
so they at least chose an actor that can, because that's definitely what you want. You never want your leads to overshadow your villain. And we've already established that we believe the simple comment of fear establishes him as the villain.
And his body language, just in this testimony alone, with his hand kind of back, he's kind of set back, he's kind of crossed his arms, he's moving a little bit here and there, but he's very much being standoffish of this thing. He knows what's coming or what's happening or what's going on.
If there's one thing I'm surprised of, is there's no close-up of him as he first leans back. Where he goes from the first, and when he says they can talk, where he would lean back. And that would be that revelation where we know he knows.
Something's going on here.
Right. That's the only surprise I find in all that.
So we had the benefit of hindsight, but do you think if we dropped somebody who'd never seen any of these movies into this scene right here and said, who is a female, would they be able to tell that Kim Hunter was a female?
Well, yeah, because she has the Dorothy Hamill bob.
I mean, they both. Well, I mean, but they both have their hair combed back.
But Cornelius has much more of a almost a mullet kind of thing going, where it's simply back, and hers has that little flip underneath, which at that time would have been Mary Tyler Moore and things like that. Yeah. So I do think, and plus, doesn't her clothing also is more of a dress with pants underneath it?
I don't remember.
But that's also assigning gender-specific human roles to apes from another 2,000-year-away culture.
We do get, in this moment, we do get the laughter from the audience, not by words. There was laughter a little bit earlier than that. Mm-hmm. When he says, and I have to inform you that these apes have acquired the power of speech, the chairman comes back, and by the way, he's named as the chairman. They don't really give him much more than chairman.
And he looks like Carl Reiner.
Okay, he does.
He does.
Rob Reiner's dad.
Yeah, he does. He says, Doctor, you know as well as I do, they have their brain system isn't developed in the vocal cords, abstract area, yada, yada, yada. And then Lewis kind of reinserts himself into the dialogue. And he says, it is for you, gentlemen, to assess how far that power can be exercised intelligently. What's interesting is it originally said is for you, ladies and gentlemen, to assess how far that power can be exercised intelligently. And they either struck the four ladies because they realized they had just 8 dudes on the panel, or they just changed that dialogue. But it was originally had ladies on the, potentially for the audience. He's directing it to the chairman, but the suggestion was that he would be talking to the audience.
So let's shift to what we talked about kind of when we were preparing for this, let's talk about the audience. The audience is, how many people would say? 40, 50?
Something like that.
There?
Yeah.
And of that, we counted up, there are